Jeffrey Epstein, right?
Yep. Everybody's been talking about it for, several days now because they've been saying they're going to release information, but it's not looking like we have anything yet as of right now, the 27th, after 5, right?
5:51 p.m. And so
Eastern.
far, I haven't seen anything or anything
Yeah.
new, I should say.
And I tell you what, like, I've been going around a lot of different, like, YouTube channels and stuff like that, usually ones that are pretty supportive of Trump. And these people are pretty hungry for this. They're basically saying, like, if we don't get it soon, we're not even going to believe whatever you release in the first place. I've been hearing a lot of different things about it. What have you been,
That that's basically what I've
hearing?
been saying.
That you have
They
no
just
reason to
pushed it,
believe
I
it?
guess. Maybe we should kind of point out what happened here. So we were all told that we were supposed to get. I believe we were told we were supposed to get this like day one of Patel being in the FBI, right?
Um,
Or
let's
being the
see. Yeah, he said that, and then also Pam Bondi
yeah,
said it.
a lot of
So it kind of
promises.
requires them both, I guess. So she got in yesterday or the day before, right?
Yeah, I think she was supposed to. This is all already supposed to be released. So now we're to the point where they were like, okay, it's been a little bit longer. Here, we're gonna get it going, and they've kind of like seems like they've just pushed. I don't know, pushed it as far as they can, and now they're like, okay, now we need to get it out. So they told everybody that it was going to be out today at noon. They're on my desk, and then noon comes, nothing. And then I don't know what time it started happening at, but then everybody started saying that they were putting it on. Um, a bunch of influencers are putting on social media that they were going to the White House or something, and I thought it was just like I don't know, just people trying to get some engagement. I saw a lot of like random farming around this, and
Yeah, are you
then
talking about the pictures of people with binders and they said Jeffrey Epstein files declassified on the binders, but we don't know if there was anything in there?
yeah, well, I that was that yeah that eventually happened, but this is like earlier in the day, before any of that, and then I don't know. I saw the Mario New Fall spaces and hopped on there for a little while until it started, and then they were kind of all giving updates and basically saying, "Oh, we thought that this was all going to be this was just a bunch of influencers like making jokes and stuff, but no, they're actually up at the White House, I guess." And then that's when that little photo op came out with them all holding those binders, which I've seen was actually a that was actually a mistake. That wasn't like a planned photo op or anything,
What
but
do you mean a mistake?
like they didn't plan. I don't know, just
That was
they didn't
unplanned or those people just did that?
like the photos. It wasn't a photo op. It was just like they all were there at the same time and all were walking out at the same time and then took some photos.
Oh, okay. So you're saying it was a little more genuine than that. They weren't trying to take a photo op with them. They just all happened to be there when like a cameraman was there, so it led to that moment.
Yeah, or I mean, they're a bunch of influencers, so they probably all took pictures. Like, look at how big and important I am. I'm at the White House with this nice binder.
Yeah,
But I
absolutely. I
think they
can.
actually did get binders with a bunch of stuff in them. I saw Laura Loomer try to post that it's all just a prop and there's nothing in them. Blah blah blah. I don't know. I think they got some stuff. I saw somebody post that they I don't know. From what I've seen, everything that is coming out of it is just like completely whited out. There's nothing in it.
That's kind of
But
wild. So there's literally it's a blank sheet in there mostly. Is that what they're saying? Or that's what you're saying?
I mean, I've seen some of the pictures and it looked a lot like there was just nothing going on. Like
That's really wild.
one just said like Jeffrey Epstein. It had like a case number and then like the offense, and it had like child prostitute or minor prostitution, and then had just this big white bubble below it of like what it was gonna say. Then there's a sentence that's like what we found was white, and I don't know. It's probably just somebody joking around. I have no idea, but I did see, or that photo is probably just somebody joking around. But I did also see other people that supposedly had the binder with pictures in a binder of something similar. So I
Yeah,
have
and
no
I
idea.
think what I'm the most worried about and what I read on one article is that some people are saying maybe we're only going to get information that we've already had released. Like if they release information that we already know, that's really not going to be like great. Of course there's going to be a news cycle saying, "Oh, Bill Clinton and everybody else that we already know." But that would really suck if there was no new information in this. That would be kind of the worst case scenario for me. But it's possible as well that the FBI and the people before they got in, they're trying to scrub all new information. So and just leave all the old stuff that we already know. So that would be really I don't know how this is all going to shake out, to be completely honest. This could all end up just getting us completely nothing, and I think that'd be pretty sad.
Yeah, I don't. I feel like it would be hard for me to believe that nothing would come out of it, only because I feel like they'd have to be dumb to think that a lot of these groups would continue to like support and push and like put up with some of the dumb stuff that the Trump administration's doing. Like a lot of those like pro-Palestine or I call them anti-Israel because I view pro-Palestine as like I don't know, not the people that know a bunch about Israel necessarily. But I know there's a huge group of people. I know I would put you in inside of that group, but there's like a whole following of people that are like they want this out, they want Israel out, and it's like a big makeup of the Republican Party right now. So they'd have to be pretty stupid to like just shit on those people and be like, "Oh, sorry." Like even the Department of something on X put out a link about the Epstein. Like I think it's like the oversight committee, or I don't remember what. No, it was the GOP committee put out um, an Epstein link, and you click on the link, it goes to a government website that has a link to YouTube, and it's just a Rick Roll clip,
Are
and
you
it's like,
serious?
dude, yeah.
No.
I'm like, I went and did it. I don't remember where it was, but well, I mean, I just said it. I could probably look it up, or you could look it up, or anyone could. I don't know how long it'll be there. Maybe somebody's like, hey, this is probably not a good idea and took it down already. I don't know.
Yeah, they probably did. I would have by now if I was them for sure. But
Yeah, like what the?
I'm just saying, like,
I
there's a
mean, if they
lot
did
you
that and
can.
then came out with a bunch of like good information for everybody and were transparent about it all, I guess I would probably be like, all right, well, I guess making a light joke in the middle of all this isn't that bad. But if it's just the same stuff that we've already seen and nothing new and a bunch of false promises, then I'm like, are you guys just trying to fuck with all of us?
Well, how much can they promise from the outside as well? Like, they're not available on the inside to see the information until they're confirmed, right? So, like, if Trump makes a campaign promise 4 months ago to get rid of the or to release the Epstein files, it gives them a lot of time to scrub whatever they want, to be honest. So, like, it kind of sets him up in a bad position if you really think about it, because he's saying, like, we are going to release this information. He doesn't even know what the information is. And once you get in there, there's significant barriers to finding the information and getting it and then putting it in a releasable form. So I don't know. Like that, I know they said day one that they were going to release it, but I think they may have set themselves up for failure with that, and then it's going to lead to people, questioning and not trusting after that.
Yeah, but even if they, well, two things. Trump probably already had a pretty good understanding of what he was allowed to and not allowed to do. I mean, he set up meetings and stuff with other world leaders prior to him taking office. So, and then if they were gonna do it that way, like they should have just like been on, like they should have made a bunch of false promises. That's really what screwed it all up. So they hadn't made a bunch of false promises, I would be more willing to like have an understanding for that. But if you just continued to make false promises all throughout, like everybody's confirmed, so you could have like kind of seen that coming prior to some confirmations and been like, hey, we did say that, but maybe it's a little bit more complex than we were thinking. And then, kind of gave everybody a reasonable date. But I don't like this whole keeping everybody on the edge.
Yeah, no, it's terrible, and I wouldn't necessarily even say it's a false promise. Like I think he knows what he has the ability to release, but like I don't think Trump can just go look at the Epstein files. I think he has to request them. That's why he had to put in his person in the DOJ. Cash Patel, and he had to have these two characters in there to even release these files. So it hasn't been until like yesterday or the day before that they could have even done this, right? So now that they're looking for it, they might not even be able to find all the files. Like I said before, what if everybody just scrubbed in the last 4 months all of the stuff that was new? It's not like any of them have ever seen those documents before. So that's why I say they might have set themselves up for failure, because what they were hoping to do might not even be possible. And once they get there, they might not even have all the information. Because that's the thing that Pam Bondi just said. Let me see. I actually looked it up to kind of see where they were at on that, and she was threatening. There it is. By 8 a.m. tomorrow, February 28th, the FBI will deliver the full and complete Epstein files to my office, including all records, documents, audio, and video recordings, and materials related to Jeffrey Epstein and his clients, regarding how, or regardless of how such information was obtained. There will be no withholdings or limitations to my or your own access. So it looks like to me that she doesn't even know what's in the Epstein files yet. Does that seem accurate?
Yeah, they put. All right, couple things, because I have been following the Epstein thing. I know I told you prior to this call that I haven't really been looking too much up this week, but um, yeah, a couple days ago she put out something that said like this just came to my desk, because I don't know. I'm sure you saw, but they had a whole thing where supposedly FBI was destroying a bunch of documents related to the Epstein case as well. And then uh, I don't know, she like sent something, maybe it was yesterday that I saw it, but she sent something to somebody and said like this just landed on my desk, and it was like 2 days old in the email from when it was signed. And I'm like, this just landed on your desk. Number one, you should be better with your emails. It shouldn't take you 2 days to get to an email. Like, I don't know, you have to have a
Especially one like
priority there.
that, right?
Yeah. And then like second, it just seems like they're, I don't know, like that one seemed like she was posting it to, I don't know, it could be just to like try to deflect blame and stuff, but I don't know, it seemed like an orchestrated effort to like create a narrative. And then yeah, then these influencers and everything, I'm just like, nobody's gonna believe any of this.
Yeah,
But
dude,
they
it's
had she also had posted something about the, like, earlier today before these files were even like out, probably around the time that everybody's showing up to the White House. She like sent an email, or sent a letter or email to Cash Patel and said, hey, before you uh, were confirmed in, I requested these documents, and I just had a whistleblower let me know last night that there's that I or she stated that she received 200 documents and was told multiple times that this was the entirety of everything. There's nothing else, and she had a whistleblower just tell her that there's the FBI, like New York district, was holding 2,000 more documents. But that 2,000, I'm pretty sure I saw that like a month ago. So I'm like, and I didn't get that far into it, but I don't know. To me, it just seems like
I
the whole thing is slightly orchestrated. But
no, I read something on that a little bit because what you're dealing with here is the fact that the Ghislaine Max, I always pronounce her name wrong. The Ghislaine Maxwell trial, the documents related to her case were like 600, 700, and the fact that they would have 200 on Jeffrey Epstein, and 600 or 700 on her doesn't make a lot of sense. Of course, they're going to have more on Epstein. He was like, the big dog in the whole fucking thing. So, yeah, um, there's got to be more. That's what the thought process is.
Yeah, I definitely think there's. Well, I think Pam Bondi also. Also, I think I'm screwing something up here. I think it was that like Luna girl, if you know who I'm talking about.
No,
Um,
I have no idea who's the Luna girl.
she's got like three names. I think she's from Florida, but I don't know. She got appointed to something um, in the Trump administration, and she was supposed to like release or like help orchestrate the release of all these documents right after like Pam Bondi. I don't know. So like it seems also like maybe some of these people are fighting over who gets to take the glory of releasing them.
Yeah, that would be the silliest option. Like nobody wants to see that, especially around an event like this. But I can see that, and then it may end up making it bad in the long run, and make us less trustworthy of the whole thing because everybody's acting shady around it. Like why would I trust them if they're really out there for glory? And it makes me think they're going to scrub names that are Republicans, or
Right.
that in the background there's stuff going on where people are calling and saying, hey, I know I'm on the list, I'm one of the good guys, I'm on your side, can you take me off that list? And the bad thing for me is that I think Trump might do it in some case, and the reason I say that is only because of him defending that one congressman, Matt Gaetz, who was clearly really really bad.
I don't know. I never looked too much into Matt Gates, but I saw some clips that he said some funny stuff at least. I did hear, I guess I do know some of the negative things, but
Yeah,
um,
and Trump got him out of his ethics problem that he was going to have, and it could have led to a legal problem. Although they did say that they looked into it and they weren't going to press any charges, but
I
he
do
was
know the
clearly
ethics
doing
thing
some
is like,
stuff with some minors. I'm just going to say that outright. He definitely sent money to minors, and there's multiple witnesses saying that he engaged in sexual acts with them. So, yeah, scary.
yeah, but I mean, I guess I do know a tiny bit about it. Wasn't all of the information regarding it all leaked by the ethics committee?
Yes. Oh yeah, definitely.
So
But
probably
it
not.
doesn't mean he
Again,
didn't
not
do
the
it.
people I'd really want to trust with the information. They
No,
didn't
it
shoot up
doesn't mean he
Joe.
didn't do it though.
Well, I
Like,
know.
and
I'm not
his
saying he's in the
explanation to
clear about
Tucker
it because
Carl.
of it.
Honestly, I wish maybe we should pull up the Tucker Carlson interview that he did right afterwards. That was like, after watching that, you'll be like, okay, this guy's pretty shady.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not trying to defend him here. I'm just I do
I
know
get
that
it.
because I just when they were leaking it, I was posting all over. Like you're telling me that the ethics committee is leaking information.
Yeah, they don't have good reasons for doing it, but
Well, it's
the
bad
thing about Matt,
ethics.
he
Like
definitely, but Matt
that
Gates
was
himself
awful.
was hated by both sides. Like even the MAGA, people, a lot of them hated him. It was only like Marjorie Taylor Greene who really likes him, but yeah,
No, she's no good.
there's something off about him, and it's not just his eyebrows.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, he's not in, so I really don't care. I don't think he's doing a whole lot. But uh, yeah, I
I'm
don't
just
know what
saying,
they're
if
gonna
there
end up.
was somebody on that list who wanted to be off of it, they might turn it into a whole thing, and that might be what's going on in the background right now. So I would hope, like you said, that they just release it as soon as possible. If it doesn't come out tomorrow morning, I'd say it's a wash.
Well, here's the other thing though: is like Donald Trump's name's on the stuff that had already been out. So
Yeah, the flight log, but this is the
so like
client list, right? That's a little different.
no, this is supposed to just be the flight log again.
Really? Are you
Yeah,
kidding
but
me?
like the full flight log.
Oh, I thought we were getting like a client list of some type as well. That I was a little
That's
more
I think that
excited
was
for a
something that
second.
was pushed. I mean I originally I thought that as well, and I could I would think that maybe that's something that they also pushed during the campaign, but um, I do think when Pam Bondi was talking about it, she was saying that they were going to release it not in stages, but that they were
all
gonna
at once.
release what they could, and like they were gonna release. I don't know. She's pretty specific with it, and then the internet went crazy with it. It was like all the Epstein files, and I saw a ton of people trying to like correct it. They're like, no, it's not everything. Don't. They're trying to get you hyped up to like
To be
basically get you let
disappointed.
down. Yeah, and
Yeah, because
probably all for engagement. To be honest, there's a whole that's I don't know.
at least they're doing what they can. I mean, I can appreciate that in a lot of ways because there's just not a lot of people that would even do that. It was a great gesture, for example, releasing information on JFK and MLK Jr. Because I just feel like they've been a little too shady about that. We didn't get that
Th-
much new information. We did
Did they
get the
even release
fact.
anything?
Yeah, they did. They released government documents, and maybe you missed that one, but they did release information saying that the government was talking about two different shooters for JFK, and that they thought that was a very likely option. And I think there was some hinting at the fact that they were like pushing the single bullet theory, which is pretty
Maybe I
good
did see
rev.
this.
Yeah, so that one came out, and I don't actually know if there was anything new that came out in terms of the Martin Luther King Jr. But maybe you can correct me on that. Let's look it up real quick.
Martin Luther King. Let's grok it.
Yeah, because does Grok have like current information that's like
Yeah,
the last couple weeks? Okay,
yeah. It doesn't.
'cause-
I looked up the Epstein stuff right before this to just make sure that in the I don't know 40 minutes that I'd looked at the internet that it didn't like actually release everything.
yeah, you
Um,
got to do that. Yeah, so I'm gonna look it up as well because I was hoping that they would admit that maybe it was the CIA or at least some sort of connection.
I mean, I know it was the CIA, but
They
well,
killed
at
Martin
least
Luther King Jr. Yeah,
well, I
or are you
mean
talking about
CIA,
JFK?
FBI. I was talking about JFK, but
Yeah, I'm looking up Martin Luther King Jr. Trump release. Yeah, so it's released the secret FBI files on the civil rights icon's assassination. That's what it says. But
they're
President Trump
expected
signed
March
release.
9th.
Okay, that's probably why I haven't heard anything about that one yet. It hasn't happened yet.
But
But
it's probably what you I think you are hearing is the stuff that came out last time that they did release some, which was like only a couple years ago, and um, I think they did come out with some. Yeah, they came out with some indication that it was possibly the CIA involved, but not. Yeah, it wasn't like any smoking gun evidence of anything. I think that I I don't know. I think maybe I'm wrong because I saw somebody when they were talking about this a lot that I follow that I know is smarter than I am with this topic specifically, and they had a whole different idea on it. But I think at least in some part that there's two different things that I think are possible. One is that they set the whole thing up, and I think, um, oh shit, what's his name? Uh, the killer, who they say killed JFK.
Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yeah, I could only think of Booth in my head.
Oh yeah, yeah. That couple or 100 years before, right?
Yeah, I just these assassin names they just bounce around in my head.
They got good names. I'm
Uh,
not gonna lie.
oh,
Lee Harvey Oswald. That's a pretty good name to. I don't know. Sounds like a good famous guy. And then there was
wait,
Jack
so
Ruby who shot him. I'm remembering names well today.
yeah,
Um,
so
so
the Lee Harvey Oswald was also like talking with the CIA or the FBI, one of the two, and had been meeting with them a bunch, and then I don't know, I think was something I don't know, had some other issues. Like there's a whole thing to that. So I think they planned on using him and making him do it. And if you've ever seen the movie Shooter with Mark Wahlberg, pretty good movie,
I
but
have
it
not.
has Wait, what'd you say?
I have not seen that one.
It's basically, I don't want to give away. I probably shouldn't.
Is
Well,
it similar to
I'm
that?
already, yeah, I'm already gonna give
Go
it away
ahead.
by bringing it up. But
Turn it off
uh,
if you don't want that movie spoiled. Whatever.
yeah, yeah, it's definitely gonna be a good warning. Good warning. So Mark Wahlberg is hired by some like um, shady, like I don't know, government military people, and they come and tell him that they think that there's a target on the president and that they need his help because he's like the only person that's been able to ever like he has the longest sniper shot in the world recorded, and he's like one of the best shooters in the world. So they're like, hey, Mark, you need to come with us so that you can plan out this killing of the president, and then when you figure out where the locations where you'd be able to take that shot from, we'll have people go there so that we can catch this person. And he's all on board with it. Well, he's actually very anti-government, but basically gets I don't know, pushed into it. And yeah, when it all happens, it's they set up somebody else, like shot him, and then he was the like fall guy, and they had video surveillance of him walking around, taking pictures and like planning the whole thing out because they fucking told him to. So
Ooh, that's interesting. So a lot of people think that that's like an allegory or maybe an admission, essentially that they did it. That's kind of the way that they framed a guy like Oswald, right?
that's how I think is part of it. But I also think because that there's a whole weird thing with this, and I guess they don't know exactly the who the George Bush is, but there was a George Bush that called the FBI, and this would be senior, obviously, that called the FBI and gave them a name of who they said shot and killed the president. And that person never got arrested or anything.
What was the
And
name? Did they? They
Robert
probably didn't say,
something?
right?
It's Robert something. I posted it so that I could look back if that
So that you could
information ever
remember
came
it.
out. I knew exactly.
No, that's interesting. I wouldn't put it behind them. So here is another really interesting fact. I'm going to show you this one personally sometime, and I want people to look this up because this is a really wild one. Timothy McVeigh, right? The Oklahoma City bomber. Are you familiar with him?
Um, I don't think so. I mean, it sounds familiar. I'm not. Yeah, definitely tell me about it. But
Yeah, I'll give you the run because this is such an interesting event. Really, really bad event too. So he was a part of the Oklahoma City bombing with a guy that helped him. I think from Michigan. I think they even said that he was in contact with Osama bin Laden at one point, which is really, really ridiculous. But there's just a lot about that story that's crazy. But he rode up to the federal building with a rider truck packed with fertilizer explosives of some type, exploded it, and it took out a big chunk of the building, including a children's what's it called, like a daycare. So a whole bunch of like 6 or 7 children died. It was really, really terrible. A bunch of people died. Giant hole in the building, and he basically said he did it because he was against the federal government, and it was based on like a manifesto. And I forget exactly which manifesto it is, where a guy turns against the government and goes and blows it up. And he is a military guy who's about 3 4 years removed from the military. But the problem is somebody has a video of a journalist that went into a military vehicle and Timothy McVeigh is in there and he is interviewed during the time that he was discharged. So a lot of people assume that he was not discharged. He was actually sheep dipped. That's what they call it, where they give you discharge papers and put you into special operations, right?
yeah,
So it's a very, very the type of stuff that they're able to do is pretty wild. That one in particular, I believe, based on what I've looked into, If anybody wants to try to disprove it, go for it. But like that one in particular, I'm like, okay, that seems mighty plausible, and that video is definitely him.
Oh, I mean, that's definitely how. That's like a whole training thing through the Air Force on like the misinformation campaigns and everything. Is the like it's actually super interesting because I think a lot of what is happening now, you could go back and look at the UFO community and probably learn a lot about how this like a lot of this stuff works. And I'm sure it's probably in other areas too, but that's just probably where I learned it. Nonetheless, good resource. But they just had all these people come out and like infiltrate the UFO community after they were discharged and like become these new leaders of UFO stuff. And it's I don't know. Like I don't think they were ever out of like intelligence. And now it's to the point where people just joke about it. Like I think Joe Rogan has Mike Baker on all the time, and he was in the CIA. And I'm pretty sure even Joe like jokes about like him not being like he's not sure like if he's telling the truth all the time or if he's got to like still give a government answer.
Yeah, because you really gotta the amount of power that organization has, absolutely wild. It's like so far like beyond and the NDAs and like even when people come out, there was one of those guys recently who came out to say some stuff about the UFOs, but everything he did was run through an organization that he was allowed to say it. So there's
The thing
nothing
is
that comes
silent.
out from there that they don't allow us to say. They send their people out to people like Joe Rogan probably to get some sort of message out.
Yeah, I think there's it's most of the people that control like these communities are a mix of CIA or some type of intelligence asset, or they're just people that are like duped. Or I guess the third option is maybe they're not duped and they're just doing it for the money. So like Jeremy Corbell is like a guy that I liked at first. I liked he had a movie or documentary he made about Bob Lazar. And I thought it was a pretty good documentary. And I didn't know much about Bob Lazar, and he actually has a pretty good story. There's also
Oh
some
yeah.
bad stuff in it, obviously, if you do
Yep.
know the history. Um, but yeah, like so, you get Bob Lazar. Maybe that's one person that actually knows stuff and try to come out. That I'll say that. But everybody else, like, I am pretty sure that they're all a part of that because it's either somebody that is in the CIA or the FBI or the intelligence that comes and infiltrates and like then they're the one telling everybody what to do because they're in charge, or the other people in that community that are leaders are just people that are really just taking kind of like they're under the wing of that person. Because I know when they were doing it back in the 60s, it was they would tell these UFO communities, like they would have like 3 4 people and they'd talk to them all in secret and they wouldn't let any of them know that they were talking to, like they didn't, none of these other like people from the outside, none of them knew that they all had the same contact. And then they would feed them different stories, but like 50% of it would all match up to be like the same thing, and then 50% of it would just be complete bullshit. But then it was
Making it
different
all
bullshit per person. So what happened is everybody went back to the UFO community and they went to these conferences and everything and try to like persuade their supporters and groups into how they believe and what they think actually is going on. And everybody had a different story because everybody was told something slightly different. And then they couldn't verify anything because only half of it was verifiable, or like, only half of it was the same. And that's the exact same thing that you're seeing in the UFO community right now. But I also am starting to think that maybe they do a lot more of that in like all of this other stuff too.
flooding the information spheres basically. Is that what you're
Yeah, I
talking
mean
about?
they
Because I mean,
definitely didn't stop studying that stuff in the 60s. They definitely
no.
didn't get not better at it.
Well, here's something I have. This is a conspiracy theory, but I think it's a good one because what you got here, there's something about the media that feels really fake, and it feels like they can do whatever they want and they just keep going, no matter if they're making money or saying anything that's real. And we all know for sure that during World War II they took over the media, but I really think that it happened again when Trump got into office the first time, and I don't think it stopped. I think there's been, in some secret way, the CIA, influence, whatever it is, and there is a media branch of the CIA that specifically goes out to release information and influence what comes out. Like that's a fact. So it's just about what level of pressure they're actually putting on these sources right now, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard because I don't know how that how anybody's going to get the information out. Because like, all right, some of the people that I'm going to use the UFO stuff as an example again, but um, Tom DeLonge is uh, well, he's one of the people from Blink 182, but he's like super into aliens. He actually knows a bunch. He met with all of these people prior to them being whistleblowers and everything. And he says that he understands why they don't tell anyone or why they don't want to tell anyone. He thinks that they probably shouldn't tell everyone everything because it's probably not going to be good. And then
And
he
of
also
course he
thinks
won't
that
say,
whole
right?
what's that?
And of course he's not saying what it is either, right? He That's
Oh, he does.
because he agrees.
He does, or he says what he's allowed to. And he basically his story is that it's honestly I think it's pretty similar to Tucker Carlson's, but they're um, like trans dimensional beings, and they've always been here, and we can't even fathom to understand them. But what we see them doing is like we're seeing them from our 3D perspective, but they're in their 4D, so they
Yeah.
don't like the interaction is not how we. That's what we can't fathom. Is we don't have any idea how the fourth dimension would work in our head.
Or because that's not aliens you're describing, that's something in religious spheres that people describe in every single culture. You know what I mean, right?
Uh, Here, you want to hear? You want to get real deep into something?
Yeah, go for it. Because like
I'm not
I mean,
sure.
these are things I believe too. Because I'm into religious stuff, so go
It's not
for
so
it.
much religious. It's almost a theory of everything. Uh, it's not my theory, but I've it's something I've thought about in a lot of ways, and it almost works with simulation, but or like it almost is just simulation theory. But I just saw another person talking about it too. Essentially, it's really hard to explain. Your your consciousness is the universe. Oh, I'm gonna butcher this.
No, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the law of one, and it is a concept that comes from Gnostic thinking.
Mm,
And I'm 100% sure of what it. I know what you're talking about,
this is a
and
physicist.
it's a little more complicated than it is religious.
Well, maybe, but not how we would perceive religion now. I think his theory is that what basically that we're all conscious, but I think it's like a collective consciousness, and I don't know. I'm gonna fold it into my own story, so forget that I'm even referencing somebody else. But I think that we're a consciousness that, like my own consciousness, is me. I'm in my own dimension. You're in your own dimension. So I know you as a person, but I only know you, the version of you that's in my dimension. You have your own dimension that you're in. And it's, oh, it's so complex, but so like when you drift apart from somebody, that's what's happening is you're moving farther and farther from that dimension. And as like a group, like we're all physically kind of here, but within different dimensions. So that's kind of the same thing as the UFO is that they're trans, maybe they're just more advanced consciousness is kind of the idea. So,
No, I can see that, and this is something that I can give you documents that talk about this. For example, and I'll tell you what people talk about and why this actually is a very
Well,
religious concept. What's that?
watched a 3 hour video on it. I'm not trying to. I guess what I'm trying to explain isn't something that you're gonna be able to like supply me with anything. It's like my own how I see the world, how it makes sense to me.
Oh, I thought you were saying that it was based on other people's views.
I was at first, and then I realized I couldn't explain his view very well, so I was just going to take over with my view. So
Yeah.
that's why
So
I said don't forget I referenced the physicist guy, but so basically, yeah, and there is a lot of other backing to it. What gives it credibility in my mind is that a lot of this backing, especially what you're talking about, is probably something different than the other three sources that I've heard of it. Um, is that I thought about this all on my own before
yeah,
I ever even saw anything.
it's
But essentially,
similar to the simulation theory. Yes.
it's very similar in a way that, well, just kind of at the beginning, that maybe our consciousness is designed to go through, and that the whole universe is a like a construct that our consciousness created, but our consciousness is created by a like I don't know, basically, yeah, the whole thing's a computer that our consciousness makes.
Yeah, and I'll give
But
you so I'll
it
give you
goes
some
into
interesting stuff that I have read about those topics because I got some really cool stuff.
well,
Um,
hold
and,
on, let me explain what I'm talking about.
oh, okay.
Um, so like if you think about the little tiny atoms, like we never knew um, that like at one point we thought a grain of sand was the smallest thing in the world, and then we went down to like molecules, then we went down to atoms, and then we realized that there's neutrons, and then we're like, oh, there's electrons, and then now we're down to like, oh, there might be these like little quarks, and then they're like, oh, maybe actually there's strings. So that's where like string theory comes from. The whole idea though is that the more that we look, the more that becomes very similar to a game. And then farther we release the opposite view, we release the James Webb telescope so we can go look out into the stars, and we expect to be able to see the radio surrounding, which is like basically when you're looking that far, you're looking at a, not distance necessarily, but time. So you're looking back in time the farther you look. So when you go and look out there, they expected to see this like radiation and no galaxies or anything formed. And so far, they've just seen more and more universe the exact same way at the almost the exact same maturity. So to me, that seems like almost proof that when we look at things that it's creating it like a video game. Because a video game, when you look, you're not it doesn't render and load everything behind you until you go to look at it. And I think the same thing here. And I think our collective consciousness is what is writing the program in front of us. So I think possibly when governments want to try to keep people scared, what they maybe knowingly or unknowingly are doing is kind of pushing everybody to have this collective thought of, say, World War III. Everybody expects World War III to happen, then it happens. It's the law of attraction. But I don't know. Hopefully, this is kind of making sense. And all so, yeah, you can
No,
piece some of
it
that
makes
together
plenty
and
of
fill some
sense.
of it in. But I to probably fully explain that would take a lot longer. So hopefully, I just hit a couple points that people can
No, you did, and
comment
I'm
on.
still gonna relate it to the couple things that I've read that I think will be interesting for you to look into because the main difference is just that, like, in your view, you think there's some like computer somewhere that's a generator of infinite consciousness, but what you're describing there is God, essentially, and that's what a lot of people actually believe is that God is an infinite being and is everything. So everything here, you and I, an atom, a dog, the smallest thing that you can know of that's even smaller than an atom, everything is the same thing in a different form. And what we essentially have here is an infinite being that's exploring itself. We are a function of God exploring himself. And that's the only way that we can really conceive of it. And we think of ourselves as these very grandiose beings and things like that. But realistically, it's very possible that we will be returned to the source after we collect something or explore whatever we're doing. So, in a way, you're right. if that's the case, we might choose to explore as a consciousness something very evil, which we have lots of times on this earth. And I think that's what people struggle with. That's why they struggle with trying to figure out what this whole thing is, right? And then I'll give you a slightly crazier view that comes from the Theosophical Society. So I'll give you an open source book as well. It's called The Astral Plane, Its Scenery, Inhabitants, and Phenomena. And in this, it's like a 6-hour audiobook on YouTube you can listen to. Really, really wild. They talk about how they have like a pursuit to get to this like higher astral plane, that is only one place that you can go, and that you can communicate with beings that have like reached up to these different levels. So like there's certain beings out there that kind of act as like an alien or a demon, but really it's just like a human that's jumped up there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've seen a little bit about this, but I should probably just look and watch. I think I have watched some of that video, but like you said, it's 6 hours. I can tell you, I for sure did not make it through. I think I did watch some of it, but it was like later at night, so I don't know a whole bunch about it. But I can attest for that uh, the astral plane, because isn't that like an energy? An energy? Don't they think it's like some type of energy field?
Yeah, they believe that everything kind of like blend, that this is like the lowest material reality, and that in this same space behind it there is other things that you can see, and that you can kind of like project your consciousness into this state. And in the book they describe going around and seeing the different types of beings that exist there. Beings like themselves who have projected themselves up there, beings that are sleeping and don't know they're there, beings that are dead and don't know that they're there or dead, and then some very like malicious type spirits of some type. But they believe that they're all people in different forms that have like reached through different layers of consciousness, and from their conception or view, very much like Paul in the Bible, there's like these seven heavens, and that so basically disconnecting us from God, there's like these seven layers that you need to get through, and we're on like the second to lowest one. So in their view, that's very very interesting, and I think of these things as very pseudo gnostic as well. And I'm mentioning that this is one of my favorite topics, by the way, so I could ramble on about this forever. But the simulation theory, a lot of people reference, the Matrix, but the Matrix is referencing old, documents that are either inspired by Plato or inspired by Gnostic thinkers. So the writings are essentially that these beings, they kind of like the things you're describing, interdimensional beings called archons, are harvesting humans' energy. So humans have this like spark of the divine energy given by God, and you've got these archons that are ruling this planet and are trapping humans in this cycle of rebirth and death, and collecting their energy and making them run the world with that energy. So like it's very very similar to what's happening in the Matrix with the robots, but it's a different conception.
But there's also declassified CIA papers on basically one of their scientists saying that, or one of their groups or whatever, saying that they believed that we were a um, essentially like we were the hologram in a holographic simulation. And what that meant was that likely, and there's a couple of theories on it. What you just said is that there's some type of energy that they want to gain from harvesting the human, or whatever you want to call it. Joe Rogan says that he thinks that we're um, that his theories from actual aliens, but um, that they would be coming to, like, maybe one of the reasons that they would try to like harvest Earth is for technology, because maybe technology, like maybe other people don't make technology like us, because if you think about humans, the only thing that we really end up ever doing is creating technology. So, and then the CIA thinks that it's emotion, because all the feelings that you experience while you're living on Earth of love, happiness, all of that could easily be something that like somebody else wouldn't be able to experience because we can only experience those. You know, like you only sometimes you only experience one feeling once in your whole life, or some you never even get that feeling. You know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's possible that, have you ever noticed that dumber people are a little bit happy, right? Like you might look at like a person who is
Yeah,
kind
what's
of
it called?
dumber than you. Yeah.
Some ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, and that there's some truth to that because I've seen a lot of those like interviews on the street with like really poor people, and despite their situation, they're actually very happy. Not necessarily just like poor people, but like also just plain stupid people in Alabama or something. They're the happiest people though.
Yeah.
No offense to anybody in Alabama, but you know what I'm talking about if you're from Alabama.
You know, I had a coworker that was from Alabama, and I always used to make those same references. And I was like, eventually, I was like, "Damn, man, I'm sorry. I I keep using Alabama as like a reference of like stupidity or like I don't know, like poor like Southern people and like dumb people." And he's like, "No, no, it's fine, bro. We're I live here. We're a bunch of dumbasses." It's
See,
like,
he gets it right,
yeah. I mean,
but they're happy. They're quite happy, right?
yeah, probably shouldn't reference it though. I still feel bad about it, but hey, you know what are you gonna do? But it is a
Bama.
good reference because everybody knows exactly what you're talking about. But if you said like, I don't know, Louisiana, they're gonna be like, is this something about like black people or
Oh geez, yeah, we don't we're talking about the
we're talking about the Bible Belt, a bunch
yeah,
of
the great,
poor
what do they
white
call
Catholics.
the great white underbelly or whatever that channel was. You know what I'm talking about? That was a crazy channel on YouTube where they were just like interviewing hillbillies that were like inbred. Dude, that was wild shit.
Yeah, that seems like I would probably watch something like that. So they're probably on the right course. But
Oh yeah.
as far as one thing I did want to mention was that in my theory or what I was talking about, I do believe that, well, I guess just making the connection. I've made the connection before, and I wanted to emphasize it that yeah, in the Bible and everything, it does say that God is a part of you and a part of everything. So my my theory is that you are God, which
That's not your theory though. That's like a lot of secret societies exactly what they teach is that you are actually God and you can do whatever you want.
right, but that it doesn't make it theirs. If I thought about it independently, it's mine. But
No,
I would also
I
say
get
it's
it.
theirs. You know,
I
I'm not going to give
actually
these secret societies credit over my thoughts.
no, and see, I actually do think that that can be kind of a pitfall that people look into, and I do think it's a Masonic thing that's being thrown out there, like telling people that like you are God, because it's kind of an ego thing, right?
Well,
Instead, I think that we do have a piece of God instilled within us. But I could go deeper into my views, but I think we've got some stuff that's a little bit more complex about it that doesn't raise us to the level of God, right?
yeah, I think it's a difference between. I was just trying to explain this to somebody online today. Did not do well. But you're like you have a religion no matter what, and if you ever go, it's interesting. If you ever go to an NA or an AA meeting, the way that those like 12 steps are set up and the like way that they go through it is that basically you show up and like they'll go over. I mean, I can't remember. I only went to a couple, but um, I had to do it for some court. But basically, they just tell you that you are not the person in control. That like your addiction is a disease. It's not your
Higher power,
fault.
higher
It's a
power.
higher power that you have to like have faith in. So I think that like that's what religion is. It's who you're putting as that higher power. So some people put it as God. Some people put it as their political bias and their political progressiveness of believing in humans is always going to be better and better. And you know, some people put it in other gods, or some people claim to be atheists, which Atheism is just, I believe, basically just Christianity, but you just change the name of the God. And
Yeah,
the whole thing though, it's all like just who you're putting as that higher power. So
yeah. And the Luciferians put themselves. They believe that it's not actually Lucifer that they worship. It's Luciferianism is in related to Prometheus giving the fire. So what they believe personally is that the we are God of the planet essentially, but they go a little further than that too, because then they say like if we are God, then everything that's evil might not actually be evil. It might actually be good, and it might just be us out there, doing something for a worthy cause. So while you might see it as evil, it's actually not evil because it's an act of God. Do you understand where that logic comes from?
kind of, but I don't know. Some of that stuff's hard for me to believe because I have like such strong views of my own like belief in it.
Fair. Yeah,
Because
I'm
like,
just giving the slight pitfall on that one because a lot of people will like come to that conclusion, and then it'll be like, oh, wait a minute. If I'm God, then why can't I cheat on my wife? You know,
yeah,
and then that's where it gets real bad.
that's what I was gonna kind of say is that I feel like on the Masonic secret society side, that is more of what they're trying to do. Is that they know like if you give the power up to somebody else, then like in some ways you push off your responsibility, but then you are basically under that the control of that higher power because now you believe that somebody else is going to somehow punish you if you do something wrong. Where you can like have morals, and they've done scientific studies that you can have morals and everything without having a religion. Like you don't lose all of that.
I
So
agree.
I I don't know.
Yeah, and
Well, I
I'll
guess in
just
my
give.
view though, I don't think that I'm God in a way that is like a bad thing. Like I don't if I was God, dude, I wouldn't be starting a podcast at 30, you know?
No, I
Like
get
I'd
it,
already be rich.
but
I don't view it that way, but
you're right about the teaching. It's just this is something that I look a lot into and I'm very interested in particular is these different like religious thoughts. And I'm talking about the Gnostic one. That's the most interesting one to me because in their conception, the material world is actually kind of a lesser world compared to like God's domain, right? The real world. And that's where the whole simulation theory comes into it, is the idea that this is kind of a false reality, and we think that it's a real reality because this was created by essentially what you would call like a fallen angel, like the devil. That the devil kind of created this reality, is using God's power to do it, and that God has given us this spark to try to call us back to His way. And I think that's my conception of it that I think is a lot better than like because I don't know, that's the complexity to it. That's all I'll say because it's very very interesting if somebody wants to look into it. But that's the whole thing behind the story of the Matrix, essentially.
yeah, it was interesting. I knew a little bit about, well, I've seen The Matrix a couple times, but um, I guess, yeah, one thing that I would probably point out there with my end is that, again, I'm saying it's a collective consciousness that is doing that. So all those bad things, like, all right, here's, I guess, where I'm coming from. There's been times where I've had, like, I, I overthink and I have had anxiety, like, issues around things. So, like, I'll think, like, if I think that something's going to go wrong and it's, like, actually something that really, really worries me, more often than not, that happens. It just goes wrong in the exact worst scenario I think that it will. I also have these days where, and I understand that, like, when you're frustrated, things like maybe you do things that are, you know, you're basically like you're shooting yourself in the foot. But there's times where like I get off work and I swear, like I'm just having a bad day, and like I'll go to like walk down the stairs and I trip and fall. Like I don't actually do. This is not a real scenario. I didn't trip and fall down my stairs, but just like a flurry of bad things all in a row. And I'm in my head the whole time. I'm like, what else is gonna go wrong? And then I walk, I just like fell down the stairs. I get up and I'm like, what else is gonna go wrong? And then I go to like order dinner and I'm like, I don't even feel like cooking. I'm just gonna get something off of DoorDash. And then my DoorDash like gets somebody and then they never actually show up with my order and now it's 9 o'clock and then like three, four, five other things go wrong. And it happens to me all the time. And I think like I don't know. I think that some of that is me, but I think as like a community, like these wars and bad things are like that could all be just I mean like I'm saying, if you get everybody to think about World War III is about to happen, does does it happen because we thought about it, or does it happen and we were just aware that it was about to happen?
I surely believe we can think it away, and I agree with you. And I think it's a really interesting thought about the world and everything, and just to weave it back a little bit to the reason why I'm mentioning it. So the reason why I'm talking about the archons and things like that is in relation to the aliens, because the aliens, they were saying that they have some sort of evidence that they're not going to tell us, and that evidence points them to the idea that it's an interdimensional being. And from that perspective, I would say it's not aliens. I would say that it's something else. And then I would point, towards those certain concepts from religion that might actually explain it. So, if you had physical evidence that these, fallen angels, archons, demons, whatever you want to call these things exist, and you're not telling I mean, I can understand why they wouldn't want to tell us that, right? Like if you have evidence of that, then the public would freak out, right?
Yeah, I know Tom DeLonge made it sound like it was like bad, not like he sounded depressed about it. So
And
and
yeah,
he can't say too much, but I think from some of the interviews, it's more like it's an aggressive like species of something, and it's not exactly us. But in all of this, everybody has to understand that like time, at least in this thought process, time doesn't exist in the way that we think it does. Because like technically everything that's ever happened has already happened, and everything that happened in the past is happening right now. Everything is all at once.
yeah, we only have time because things move, and then we invented it, right?
Well, that's kind of part of the physicist that I was talking about's theory, which I liked a lot and I have incorporated into my own head. But yeah, that um, yeah, basically just exactly what you said.
But this comes down to the key of it, because I want to see, what you think those things are. Then, if they are interdimensional, would you consider them aliens, or would you consider them something more akin to demons, fallen angels, archons, whatever you want to describe them as?
I think maybe they didn't exist until we wanted them to exist and talked about them enough until a large enough collective made them exist, and maybe that's kind of the idea, is to summon them through
So, in
these
your view,
this
we're actually more powerful than them because we created them rather than they created us.
I don't know if I'd say more powerful. It'd be like you kind of pulling strings from an unknown dark water trying to get a fish out. You don't know what fish you're about to get, but you know that it's there and you know how to get it.
So, we have the power of archaic creation. If we all together are God, is God good or evil? That's the question.
God would be, I think in this sense, God would be uh, both good and bad, just like a human, and that's why we get the world that we have, because maybe our anxieties are what create negativity, or like some of like one of the fundamental things about us is what's creating that. So when you say like is God good or bad, like God's good, but then again, like what is the point of everything? So how do you define good? Because if your whole if your whole idea is to create brand new tech, then yeah, we're doing great. Like we develop stuff. It doesn't matter how many people die. Our only goal is to develop tech as a human species. But if it's to have like good emotions and not bad emotions, we're not doing great.
Yeah, that's fair, and the fighting and war and everything. But what I'm trying to say too, like, is that if there's some sort of like actual evidence they have, you would just say in that. I guess I can accept that. That's just your
So I think
worldview.
that's the thing, though, is that the evidence isn't the evidence that people want because it's not our like numbers, like all. There's no, well, you wouldn't be able to. I think that's also probably part of the, like, how would we even tell anybody this? Because yeah, you could look back at religion, but if it doesn't match up with a religion perfectly, and there's 45 other theories of what it could be, but nobody actually knows, then yeah, we look really bad because we don't know what this is, and it looks like the government's lying to everyone, and nobody knows the truth. But maybe they know that there's something higher, a higher power than their government that could physically come and do something to them. So that might throw everybody like, well, what are we doing listening to the government? What's this guy got to say? But then we end back at square one with Project Bluebeam. So
Yeah, fair,
the
fair.
future's
That's
going
what
to be,
everybody's going to believe, no matter what they release. Is that and um, is that it? I don't think no matter what they say, like the public is so coded to not really accept it in the first place. So, like, I think that's kind of where
they're
we're
going
at
to
this
have an
point, right?
alien come and do a news conference with
Yeah,
like,
like we're gonna have to actually see it, like see the
yeah,
alien body or whatever to actually get there. That's my perspective on it.
that, yeah, they would have to, but I don't know. Like, the thing about a lot of this stuff is that we're leaving out a ton of just what would be, um, like assumptions that are taken with these philosophies and these ideas. So, like I pointed out, one is the time thing, and like there's so much more. So if if we just sound stupid right now, I promise you I don't think that we're that stupid.
I've
Maybe
got
there's
one
just
more
missing
question
parts.
for you about your worldview that has popped up.
Yeah.
Like, because here's my thought process is that there are certain things in this world that humans cannot change by collective consciousness, right? That are built in, right? Like the second law of thermodynamics, that everything dies, right? If everybody collectively thought we're not going to die, I don't think we would stop dying. And if everybody collectively thought, I don't want the sun to burn out. I want the sun to gain a little energy. Like that, I don't think we'd be able to do that because I think that's systemic. I do think that we would be able to affect war, like if we all obviously started, collectively thinking towards it. And I think there's a connection between humans, but I do think we're trapped in a system here. That's my personal view, and a cycle of death that we can't affect or change. And I think that that's the main clue to me that tells me that this is some sort of system that we're in.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different views on that. We should probably do one. I could. I mean, there's a the like far side of the moon with the spirit catcher.
Yeah.
Like, there's
Look,
a couple of different ones.
let's put a pin in this then. Let's do the whole. Let's do the next one. I'm super interested in this topic because obviously it relates to these interesting religious concepts I look into. Let's do a whole one on simulation. Just talk about our views of it and relate it to whatever we want and look it all up. I think that'd be really fun.